that gives them the superpower of, wait for it, bouncing. Okay, I know that sounds pretty lame, but it works somehow, I promise. Hello everyone! My name is Violet, and I like to talk about all the great shows I watched growing up in the late 80s and early 90s. Today we are taking a look at a show that not only made an impact on me, but some credit with changing the landscape of animation on television. There is a sound that can immediately bring joy to us 80s and 90s cartoon fans. Here it is. If that sound instantly brought a smile to your face, welcome, you are my people. If you have no idea what it is, then buckle up, Buttercup, because I'm going to school you on the incredible Disney show called Adventures of the Gummi Bears. Now, we're not talking about sweet treats that sometimes dance with Katy Perry, or result in hilarious Amazon reviews. And let's not even mention this guy. No, we're talking about Gummi with an I, the wonderful original Disney cartoon from the 80s. I wish more than anything that I could play the entire opening song for you, because it is amazing. But copyright and all that jazz. I will link the official version in the description so you can revel in it like I know you want to. You could also check out the Alicia Keys version she sang on a late night talk show. It's amazing. Adventures of the Gummi Bears was a cartoon that aired from 1985 to 1991. It began on Saturday mornings, which, for those of you young'uns out there, was the only time they always aired kid shows back in the day. The show is about a group of gummy bears in a medieval world who must remain hidden from humans and have a special potion called gummy berry juice that gives them the superpower of, wait for it, bouncing. Okay, I know that sounds pretty lame, but it works somehow, I promise. Perhaps more importantly, the potion is able to give humans super strength. Much better, right? But that super strength only lasts about 30 seconds or so. Not a biggie, you'll just have to guzzle the stuff constantly to make it useful, right? Well, it can only be used once a day by humans. So, strange potion rules aside, the series follows the adventures of a group of gummy bears. They are not a family per se, as it seems none of them are actually related. They are the descendants of the Great Gummies who left the area long ago because of humans. The Great Gummies left behind a skeleton crew to keep everything running until it was safe for them to return, and our heroes somehow came from them. They're a little vague on the details of how that all worked and led to 6 unrelated gummies living in Gummy Glen who know very little about their own history, but here we are. Our main cast consists of 3 adult gummies and 3 gummy cubs, plus 1 rando who shows up in later seasons, but we'll get to him later. For the adult gummies, we start with Zummy Gummy. He's the historian and caretaker of knowledge and wisdom, and since they can't remember most of their history, he's obviously great at his job. He's very forgetful and often misplaces things and jumbles his words, but ultimately is the only gummy who seems to be able to use magic once he gains access to the Great Book of Gummi.
Since the medallion opened the Great Book, why, magic has become my life.
Grammy is the matriarch of the clan and a potion master, who is the only one who knows the secret of making gummy berry juice. She spends most of her time looking after the others, though she does it with a no-nonsense attitude and isn't afraid to put any of the other gummies in their place.
I say you're a stubborn, close-minded old foof, and I'm going!
Our last adult is Gruffy, who is like the engineer of the crew, always fixing things and solving problems in the surly manner his name implies.
Simple. We do it my way, and everything will be fine.
For the cubs, we have Tummy, the lovable layabout who is very food motivated. He's not always energetic, but he has a strong sense of morality and fairness.
It's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game.
He's the oldest cub, but his easygoing nature often gets him pulled into the antics of the younger two. Sunny is the only female cub and has a heavy case of wannabe princess syndrome. Often frustrated by not getting her way, she struggles with balancing her own dreams and obligations of being a gummy.
Nobody ever listens to me.
Cubby is the youngest and smallest of the crew, a bit of a scamp who fancies himself a knight and is frequently seen brandishing a wooden sword. He's always up for an adventure and is never content to be left behind. He has an alter ego superhero called the Crimson Avenger that appears randomly throughout the series.
Go in peace. This ruffian won't bother you anymore.
Now, plenty of storylines concern just the gummies and their discovering where they come from, and learning lessons of how to get along and depend on each other. But many of the plots involve the nearby humans in the kingdom of Dunwin. Our human cast includes Kavin, a young page whose grandfather gave him a gummy medallion, which leads to him discovering and befriending the gummies, whom most humans no longer believe ever really existed. The legend of the gummies has become somewhere between mythology and a children's story for most humans. Kavin plays a large role in early episodes, but his presence becomes sparse in later seasons. Kavin's friend, Princess Calla of Dunwin, eventually learns the truth about the gummies and forms a close bond with Sunny. She often alerts the gummies to the troubles in the castle, while keeping their existence a secret from her father, King Gregor, and head knight Sir Tuxford. The most frequent villain of our story is Igthorn, a disgraced duke who is constantly trying to attack Dunwin and take over as king. He has his own castle of sorts in a dark area called Drekmore. He has no human minions, but instead has a band of ogres who do his bidding. Toadwort, or Toady, is the smallest ogre who acts as Igthorn's sidekick and punching bag. He puts up with constant insults while still lovingly following Igthorn, who he affectionately calls your Dookiness. This makes me giggle every time. I don't know if Dookie is still used the same way today, but they use a lot of wordplay around that word that my younger self thought was brilliant. Potty humor is always a sure bet with kids, right? Igthorn and crew discover the Gummi Bears and spend a lot of time trying to get their hands on them, or more specifically, the gummy berry juice, which gives humans and ogres the brief strength buff. And they always fail spectacularly.
No, not again! I won't be stopped by 2 children and a handful of mythological bears!
Other characters are introduced briefly along the way. Each episode follows a typical format where a problem is introduced and resolved within the story, before being reset for the next episode. The show introduces a range of villains with malicious intent, as well as a few friendly allies. Other recurring characters include Lady Bane, introduced as a villain/love interest for Igthorn, Sir Thornberry, a gummy who guards the ancient gummy city Ursalia, and a group of gummies from Barbic Woods who show up at Ursalia, having been run out of their home by humans. But the ultimate recurring character comes in the form of Gusto. At the beginning of the second season, Gusto is introduced and brought back to Gummy Glen. He's an artistic gummy who has a toucan best friend named Artie. He features prominently in several episodes, and appears to be a new member of the Gummy Gang.
Hi, I'm Augustus Gummy, artist extraordinaire, but you can call me Gusto.
But then, he disappears. He shows up randomly throughout the rest of the series with no rhyme or reason as to his presence or absence. Despite a clip being added to the opening theme, he is not included in the final group shot. Looking back, I can't say I appreciated the enhanced quality of animation too much. I remember looking at it as a more gender-neutral version of the Care Bears. My brother wasn't going to watch any silly girly shows like Care Bears, but he would watch Gummi Bears with me. I loved Calla and spent many an afternoon pretending to be her helping the Gummi Bears thwart Igthorn in my backyard. Tummy was my favorite of the gummies because he was more on the quiet side like me, and we shared a love of sweet treats. So those are my nostalgic thoughts looking back on the show. But in the interest of analysis, I have rewatched every episode of the show that is on Disney+. The series gets off to a fast start with Kavin discovering the gummies and giving them the medallion that unlocks the Great Book of Gummy. Some interesting things we learn about the gummies right away is that they have a series of secret passageways and underground tunnels that can take them all over Gummi Glen and sometimes even beyond. The great gummies were able to make incredible machines and perform magical feats. There is an almost steampunk feel to the machinery invented by the great gummies, lots of wooden gears and clockwork-style mechanisms. The Kingdom of Dunwin must be very early adopters of minimalist decor, having no frills anywhere. From Calla's bedroom to the throne room, there is very little decoration to be seen. I realize, of course, that this comes from animation and time limitations, but it is interesting to see such sparsely decorated rooms for royalty. I also have to assume that the stonemasons are the richest people who live in Dunwyn, or at least the busiest. We see multiple attacks on Dunwyn Castle that create giant holes and chasms that are somehow neatly repaired almost instantly. The show manages to avoid feeling dated. Helped by the medieval setting, there are not many pop culture references or language that feels out of place. There is one instance where Sunny designs an outfit for a fashion show that made me laugh. She leaves the stage saying, "Someday everyone will be dressing like this." And while true for the 80s, thankfully, I don't see many people dressed like that today. Something I found interesting on my rewatch was how these lovable characters were not always very nice to each other. Grammy and Gruffy, in particular, have a very volatile relationship, with their fights sometimes being the cause of most of the strife in an episode. A frequent theme of episodes is seeing them put aside their differences to work together and achieve a common goal. This isn't to say that they become best friends by the end. In fact, they are generally at each other's throats in the very next episode. I think these dynamics spoke to me as a kid, having an older brother who drove me absolutely bonkers most of the time, but in the end, the love of family was always there. The Adventures of the Gummi Bears is a kid's show through and through. There's plenty of slapstick comedy, cartoon violence, simple mysteries, and adults who don't listen to children or even know what's going on. The bad guys are usually very clearly the bad guys, and being good and virtuous is always the right answer in the end. There are some deeper lessons if you're looking for them, like Tummy learning that a disability doesn't make you helpless, or the Barbit Gummies learning that just because some humans are bad doesn't mean they all are. All in all, I would say the show holds up really well, and is really fun to go back and watch them as an adult. If you've never watched the show, I will let you know of a few things to be mindful of. There is at least one instance of using a derogatory word for shorter people, and many instances of fat-shaming concerning my beloved Tummy. A few characters appear that are very stereotypical depictions, as well as some potentially insensitive cultural references, and there's a heavy dose of traditional gender roles at play throughout. As with any older programming, I feel like it's important to consider the era it was made in, and just make sure any children watching it understand that some of those things are insensitive and not acceptable today. So keeping that in mind, give the show a shot if you've never seen it. I'll be making a video that tells you my top 5 episodes, if you just want a taste, and don't want to spend almost 30 hours watching Gummi Bears, like I did. If you are an OG watcher like me, what are some of your favorite Gummi Bear memories? Did you have any merchandise from the show? Let me know in the comments down below. Also let me know which shows you'd like to see if I remember. Your suggestions will help me decide what to cover next. If I've made you curious or all nostalgic, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. And as we all know, helping others is the Gummi way. This is Violet, signing off from Gummi Glen.